The president now is promising to rebuild Maui. But then, vintage Biden.
I don't want to compare difficulties, but we have a little sense, Jill and I, what it's like to lose a home. And lightning struck at home on a little lake. It's outside of our home, not a lake, a big pond. Make a long story short, I almost lost my wife, my 67 Corvette, and my cat.
Yeah, because when you lose a car, that's like losing your family, right? Wow. It was a small kitchen fire, by the way. A scathing New York Post editorial headlined it this way: Joe Antoinette Biden lies to survivors, makes it all about himself. An excerpt here: Biden decided the best way to show Hawaii that he cares is to lie. This isn't empathy. This is ego, and it's insulting. Another: even by Joe's low standards, this trip was a debacle. Our tone-deaf commander-in-chief takes off from the Lake Tahoe home of a Democratic donor, does a flyby of the island, then turns around to go back on vacation. Mission accomplished. End quote. Jacqui Heinrich is in Lake Tahoe, where the president is, in fact, back on vacation. Jacqui.
Hey, Harris. Even before he landed in Hawaii, the president's visit was seen as a cleanup to his initial failed response. He took a lot of criticism for not giving this blaze enough attention initially, and even more for that blunt no comment when he was asked to weigh in on the death toll when he was coming off the beach in Rehoboth, Delaware. However, he carved this day out of his week-long vacation in Tahoe. His motorcade was met with protesters, some of them shouting profanities and flipping him the middle finger, and his attempt to relate to the loss and devastation in Lahaina, recounting that story of the kitchen fire 15 years ago, many said missed the mark.
I saw them flying, but, you know, the anger is normal. You know, multi-million-dollar photo op. We could have used that money directly to Lahaina.
I think it was a little bit tone deaf. However, I can understand how he was trying to meet us somewhere and say, I understand. I mean, a car and your kitchen is kind of just a little sad to hear, you know. I mean, I think people really want to see you show up for us and provide an eighth of what you're giving to Ukraine.
Now, to be fair, this president has experienced a fair amount of true, genuine loss. He also recounted another story he tells often when he learned that his first wife and 3 children were involved in a car accident when he was entering his first term as a senator at 29 years old. That accident, his wife and daughter did not survive.
She was killed. My baby was killed. And my 2 boys were thought not to make it initially. So I have a little bit of a sense what it's like driving from Washington to Wilmington, 150 miles, wondering what in God's name is it going to be like when I get to the hospital. Only thing worse than losing someone is not sure whether you've lost someone.
But there were some other moments that raised eyebrows during the president's 5 hours on the ground there. He refused water from the governor, walked away awkwardly from that offer without any acknowledgement, and then he turned around to return to his week-long vacation at the home of a climate activist billionaire in Lake Tahoe. While the president's campaign is still at work, though, making a $25 million ad buy to highlight MAGA Republicans' extreme agenda, they say, the president might not even be paying attention to the primary race. Listen to this.
Does he plan to watch the Republican debate on Wednesday?
I don't know. I sure hope not. I hope he, for his sake. So, but I don't know actually.
We are not scheduled to see the president again during his time in Lake Tahoe. He will remain on vacation until Saturday, Harris.
Great reporting, Jacqui. Thank you very much. Jason Chaffetz, Fox News contributor, former Utah congressman. Good to have you in focus this morning. Look, Jacqui's reporting and all of ours have been very balanced. There are moments when the president can connect. How would you describe this trip?
There is but one president, Harris, and in times of mourning and of difficulty and extreme loss of life, we need the president to express all of our feeling and heartache and to make sure that all of the federal resources are garnered to help those people that are in need. But this was a complete and total failure. It was embarrassing to watch him talk about himself. I don't want to hear a single word about his Corvette or his cat. There are hundreds of people that are missing. There are over 100 people who lost their life. There are untold number of kids that are still missing. And I thought it was disgusting display. Yeah, actually, what I think he should have done, he should have taken Air Force One. He should have picked up President Obama, who is from Hawaii and can actually do this type of thing. And the two of them should have gone there, and they should have promised those people that, you know what, we're going to do everything to fix it and make it right. And he should have showed up about 10 days ago, not just be on vacation twice and say that he has no comment. But it is absolutely, totally tone deaf. It was worse. It would have been better to just not show up than to do what he did.
Yeah, I'm sure East Palestine, Ohio is looking at this and saying, you know, they begged the president to come there, take his bully pulpit. Nobody expects him to do anything physically on the ground, but just to get the world to pray, to notice, and then to take that bully pulpit and say, FEMA, do this, do this, do this, get everybody motivated to do it. Ohio didn't get it at all. I don't know. I don't know what's worse. It's all really bad. He does not do this well. All right, we'll move on. No. 2 House committees issued 4 subpoenas for witness testimony on allegations of special treatment and political interference in the Hunter Biden investigation. The subpoenas targeted IRS and FBI employees connected with an October meeting where U.S. Attorney for Delaware David Weiss claimed he was prevented from bringing charges against the president's son, Hunter. Here's Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan.
What prompted them to come forward? This meeting, October 7th, 2022. You got David Weiss, you got Gary Shapley, the whistleblower, and 4 other people in that meeting. We want to talk to those 4 other people because that's the meeting that Gary Shapley said that was the red line meeting when I decided there was no way this investigation was going to do the right thing.
And really eye-opening reports coming one after another now. The Washington Post has detailed how David Weiss once worked with President Biden's late son, Beau, when Beau Biden was Delaware's attorney general. Politico reports Hunter's legal team at one point threatened the DOJ would put the president on the stand in his defense. So he had everybody working for him. The New York Times reported that David Weiss didn't plan to charge Hunter until those IRS whistleblowers came forward about his alleged tax fraud. An attorney for IRS whistleblower Gary Shapley says all this means one thing.
My overall reaction with all of this information that's come out from the Politico and New York Times articles are that David Weiss has to go. He cannot be the special counsel in this case. Every day there's new revelations about Mr. Weiss and the way he's handled this case.
Wow. And when it comes to the politics of it all, a new op-ed by Jonathan Turley argues this. Democrats aren't laughing about the Hunter Biden debacle anymore. Jason.
Well, look, David Weiss is highly conflicted. He should have never been able to take on this case given his proximity to the president. They should have named a special counsel because of the conflict of interest with the president.
A different special counsel.
Somebody who... Yeah, a different special counsel. The statute says it's supposed to be somebody from outside of government. It shall. It does not say it may. It says it shall be somebody from outside the government. This guy is highly conflicted. And then the more revelations about the proximity to the president in his past, why is he still allowed to do it? Chairman Jim Jordan is absolutely right. This is the way our government's supposed to work. The Oversight Committee, the Judiciary Committee should have access and be able to interview the people that are there. DOJ should not be giving a stiff arm and thwarting the ability of Congress to do its job and interview these people. They cannot make these people unavailable.
And David Weiss, by the way, isn't just somebody who's connected to government. He remains. Merrick Garland said it, the U.S. Attorney of Delaware. I mean, if that's not shady and cozy, I don't know what is. How often is the president in that state? 40% of the time. We'll move.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.